Copyright compliance and licensing patterns in African NLP datasets, a veridical audit of African NLP by Malwandla and Merhawi. Some African NLP projects are undocumented and unlicensed. This legal uncertainty risks invalidating foundational datasets and jeopardizing future AI development. We evaluated 249 African NLP projects for ethical sourcing, licensing, and governance compliance. We applied the PCS framework to guarantee legally compliant, evidence-based decisions for African AI governance. Our objectives were to diagnose and quantify copyright and licensing risks in African NLP datasets, identify correlation between licensing funding, geography, and commercial intent, and to generate evidence-based insights to drive equitable AI policy and institutional reform. We have a structured internal database containing information on 249 African languages NLP projects. The original dataset looks at 38 variables that capture key information such as language coverage, data sources, copyright status, licensing models, governance structure, funding source, hosting platforms, and documentation practice. The dataset is organized at the project level where each row represents a single NLP project. The dataset is cleaned for the purpose of analysis and modeling.
This slide shows how we went from a raw data to a real insight in 3 phases. The phase 1 shows that we collected 249 African NLP projects, we cleaned it and make sure it's ready for analysis. Less than 1% of that was missing, so the results are quite reliable. In phase 2, we scored each project using the weighted risk model. It looks at 4 things: legal base, license, IP analysis, and authorship. Legal basis carries the most because without it, nothing else holds up. Each project then falls into one of the 3 categories, which is the high risk, medium risk, or a low risk. In phase 3, we used a k-means clustering to group all 249 projects into a 6 governance type. We ran it 5 times and got the same result, which means the findings are consistent and trustworthy. And then everything fits into the dashboard, which turns this analysis into something policymakers and institutions can actually make use.
From our weighted risk model, we then came up with a total risk score for each project in our database. We also came up with a risk profile where it explains what the missing documentation is for the different projects. Upon further investigation, we found that most of the projects in our database fall into the medium risk category, which means that most of these projects are missing some kind of legal documentation. Projects scoring high, that is between 5 and 8, consistently lack a documented legal basis and explicit IP rights. A sizable portion of the research is conducted by authors located in the global north. And datasets, which are a result of some of these projects, are the highest risk NLP outcomes, which severely jeopardizes the future of AI development. If original data owners claim unauthorized use, then these foundational datasets can be rendered legally null and void.
So what did our evidences actually show? When we analyze all 249 projects, the same governance failure keep appearing cluster after cluster. 5 out of 6 had no clear license. 5 out of 6 had no documentation at all. Only one cluster received a global North public funding, and the same cluster was the only one with a strong governance. And this is not a coincidence. This is a policy gap. Universities are leading half of these clusters, with while community organization and government bodies are almost completely absent. 4 out of 6 clusters have unclear copyright, meaning most of these projects have no solid legal foundation to stand on. The scorecard at the bottom confirm it. Only one cluster rated high, not a single cluster scored well across all the areas. This is the evidences we needed. And what these evidences tell us is clear. African NLP data is being collected, shared, and used without the governance structure needed to protect it or the community behind it. The one cluster that is well governed is also the one that is well funded. So this is not just a technical problem, it is a policy and investment problem. For AI governance to be equitable on this continent, Africa-led funding and institutional leaderships are not optional, they are essential. So what does this mean going forward? Most of these data sets on a legal uncertainty, missing license, unclear copyright, and no documentation. Without a policy intervention, that will not change. But we have shown that good governance is possible. One cluster is already doing it. The work now is to turn that into a policy to make it standard and not exception. To keep driving that, we plan to expand the data set through the ACL anthropology, build a proactive risk checking tools for researchers, and host this platform permanently through the African Union Commission as a pan-African policy intelligence hub that can inform institutional reforms across the continent.